Well, we are learning new information about the death of 19-year-old Sade Robinson.
Her body parts later surfaced from Milwaukee to Illinois.
I do want to warn you before we continue that some of the details that I'm going to discuss that took place during that questioning is gruesome and can be disturbing for some.
On April 18th, you found something.
Correct.
What did you find?
Torso and arm.
He tried to get rid of everything. He tried to cover up. And what does he do after he gets home? He powers up his phone and he sends a text. Morning, how's work going? Disgusting.
On April 1st, 2024, 19-year-old Carlina Robinson was looking forward to her first date with a man named Maxwell Anderson. She was young, vibrant, and full of promise. A criminal justice student who had dreams of building a life that helped others. That night, she dressed up, got in her car, and headed into Milwaukee to meet a man she barely knew. No one, not even Sade herself, could have imagined she was walking straight into the hands of a monster. The two went to a couple of restaurants, Twisted Fisherman and Duke's on Water. They laughed, had drinks, and were seen chatting comfortably. At around 9:24 p.m., surveillance cameras caught them pulling into Anderson's home. After that moment, Sade Robinson was never seen alive again. The next day, her family grew concerned. She hadn't returned calls or texts. Her phone was suddenly silent. And when her burned car was found abandoned, the fear turned to horror. Hours later, the Milwaukee County Sheriff's Office received a chilling call. A severed human leg had washed ashore at Warnemont Park. Investigators would soon confirm the impossible. The leg belonged to Sade Robinson.
They walked down the S-curve from Sheridan, started walking south just for fun, rough day on the beach. As they were walking, see that leg right there? Yeah. Said that it was up about approximately where the end of that stick, branch is.
By the bushes right there.
Yeah, bushes, said that they saw it up
so
there.
It was like up on the hill, kind of?
Yeah.
Okay.
So said that him and his buddy, who's in my squad right now, walked out, called us. And then when we came back, it was about, maybe 7 feet east.
By the rock.
I moved it just for evidence purposes.
Okay, so they just swept away?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I documented it well on body cam with different angles of where it was.
Okay, cool.
DNA results on the foot are pending, but DNA results confirm the severed leg is Robinson's.
It wasn't just a murder. It was brutal, calculated, and senseless. Over the coming days, more body parts were found scattered across Milwaukee County, in parks, alleys, and even far across state lines in Waukegan, Illinois.
A man discovered a severed leg with pink toenail polish at Warnemont Park in Cudahy. The same place investigators would later say Robinson's phone was pinging between 3 a.m. and 4:30. April 5th, less than a mile from the car fire. A body part was found in the same area of 30th and Lisbon. April 6th, remains were discovered at 31st and Galena. The next day, more remains were found at 31st and Walnut. At one point, Kiki says she found a blanket with Robinson's face on it lying on the ground in Galena Park.
I looked down and I seen Sade's face. Just flipped over.
Something that won't stop is the search for Sade's body. Gail joined the family and friends along the shoreline Thursday afternoon. Investigators say they were taking a sonar boat out on the lake to look for more body parts on Friday.
Her remains were dumped like trash, desecrated beyond recognition. Some parts were never found, most notably her head. The community was shaken. How could something so gruesome happen to someone so kind? And why? Police quickly zeroed in on Maxwell Anderson. Just 48 hours after that fateful night, he was arrested.
I asked Mr. Anderson to shut off his vehicle, to which he complied. I then asked Mr. Anderson to step out of the vehicle, to which again he complied. I immediately grabbed onto Mr. Anderson and I took him into custody by placing him into handcuffs.
The charges that followed read like a horror novel. First-degree intentional homicide, mutilating a corpse, arson, hiding a corpse. But Anderson pleaded not guilty. No confession, no explanation, and no remorse.
Accused murderer Maxwell Anderson pleaded not guilty to all charges in the Sade Robinson case.
And did you understand it?
Yes, Your Honor. Acknowledge receipt, enter a not guilty plea subject to our substitution request.
What followed was a painstaking investigation. A digital trail of data points, GPS records, surveillance footage, and chilling witness statements.
Scared now to kind of want to come down here with my dog, and
do what we do every day, because now it's, am I gonna come down here and be the next one that's gonna find more body parts?
I would have been devastated. I can't even imagine what their family feels like. My heart's gonna cry for this. I can't. It's gotta stop.
We fly these balloons through the pain. Sade Carlina Robinson is her name. Justice for Sade. Justice for Sade. Justice for Sade.
The deeper investigators dug, the darker it got. A confidential informant even claimed that Anderson had planned to kill Sade weeks before they met. And yet, as the trial began in May 2025, more than a year after Sade vanished, there were still more questions than answers. The motive remained a mystery. Key remains were still missing. And Sade's family, despite their strength, were forced to sit in the same courtroom as the man accused of tearing their daughter apart. This case isn't just a tragedy. It's a chilling reflection of something deeper. The violence that continues to haunt Black and brown women across America, and the silence that too often follows. This is the story of Sade Robinson, a daughter, a student, a light that should still be here, and the date that ended in dismemberment, death, and a fight for justice that's far from over. Born on May 10, 2004, Carlina Robinson was more than just a name in a headline. She was a daughter, a sister, a friend, and a dreamer, a student at Milwaukee Area Technical College. Sade was pursuing a degree in criminal justice, inspired to build a career that made a difference. Her passion for fairness, justice, and helping others burned bright. Her mother, Sheena Scarborough, described her as the kind of young woman who lit up every room.
I missed you so much, baby girl. Mommy loved you so much. And I'm so proud of you.
Choking back tears on a cold spring day, Sade Robinson's mother, Sheena Scarborough, shares her pain.
Sade had dreams of working in law enforcement or becoming an advocate for others. She had no history of trouble, no enemies, just plans. She worked part-time jobs, stayed close to her family, and like many college students, used dating apps to meet new people. It was through one of those apps that she met Maxwell Anderson. Anderson, a 34-year-old Milwaukee man, lived a life under the radar. Not much was known about his past, but what has since come to light is deeply unsettling. A confidential informant would later tell police that Anderson had allegedly spoken about killing a woman, a full month before Sade's murder.
In these pages, there's a confidential informant who told police they had been friends with Maxwell Anderson for years and claims Anderson told them he was plotting to kill Sade Robinson about a month before her death.
That April evening, what should have been a simple first date became a descent into horror. It was a night that Sade, full of trust and youth, couldn't have anticipated would be her last. Her mother recalled the last message she got from Sade. "I love you, Mom." Hours later, her daughter's life was taken in the most unimaginable way. April 1st, 2024, 6 p.m., Sade and Maxwell Anderson meet for their date. They visit Twisted Fisherman and Duke's on Water, lively spots in Milwaukee. Security footage shows them eating, laughing, even toasting drinks. 9:24 p.m., the couple arrives at Anderson's home. Surveillance captures them pulling into his driveway. That's the last time anyone sees Sade. Later that night, Anderson's neighbor reported hearing strange noises and seeing flickering lights from the garage. But no one called the police. April 2nd, 2024. Early morning, Sade's phone is on the move. GPS data shows it bouncing across several areas of Milwaukee County, including Pleasant Valley Park and Warnemont Park. Then the signal goes dark. That afternoon, fire crews are called to an abandoned car in Milwaukee. It's in flames. The car is traced back to Sade Robinson.
Prosecutors say these two women in the area witnessed someone light a car on fire behind a nearby abandoned building. The one wearing blue flailing her arms, trying to get anyone's attention. A different angle shows someone with a large tan backpack walking away from the fire.
Panic begins to spread. 6 p.m., a leg, cleanly severed, is discovered at Warnemont Park, near the Lake Michigan shoreline. It's later confirmed to belong to Sade. April 3rd to 18th, over the next 2 weeks, police find additional remains in various locations. A torso, an arm, dumped in alleyways, hidden near dumpsters, and along remote trails. Some of her remains are found 50 miles away in Illinois. Her head remains missing. The medical examiner ruled the death a homicide.
This is sort of an unusual autopsy, correct? In that you were doing it over the period of a time period, right?
It is very unusual.
How many times have you had a situation like this?
Once before.
The lower extremity amputation transection points, were you able to come to any additional conclusions or make any additional observations from examination of the torso as opposed to just examining, for example, the leg?
Not much more. Again, the right leg was cut, or the femur was broken, and that was the transection site. The left leg was disarticulated, meaning that the ball of the femur was removed from the pelvis.
The brutality shocks even veteran investigators. Arson experts confirm her car was intentionally set on fire, an attempt to erase evidence.
During excavation, I located what appeared to be remnants of a stuffed animal, green in color, at least majority of it green, that had survived. And as soon as I turned it over, I was overwhelmed by an odor consistent with the possible presence of a petroleum distillate. It smelled like, sometimes we can't tell what it is, but it could be gasoline, it could be lighter fluid, it could be any kind of petroleum distillate. But whatever this stuffed animal was appeared to have been saturated with it because it had weight to it. And it was an overwhelming odor that I experienced.
By April 4th, police had enough. Maxwell Anderson was arrested. The investigation moved swiftly. With surveillance footage, phone data, and license plate readers, detectives built a chilling timeline.
He needs that car gone. He needs her gone. 12:47 a.m. is when we see the car leaving the house, going southbound, exiting onto Euclid, and from there you saw an exhausting amount of videos showing the car driving away from his house, northbound to the north side of Milwaukee. That was 12:49, 12:51 going northbound on 35th Street, passing Badger Ham, 12:53 a.m. northbound, passing 35th and Greenfield. That is her car. We know it's her car because this camera happens to have a license plate reader.
The erratic travel path of her phone was suspicious. It pinged locations near parks and dumpsters, areas where remains were later found. Second, footage showed Anderson's car leaving his home in the middle of the night, multiple times, matching the phone's movements. He was allegedly seen buying cleaning supplies and visiting remote locations. Police executed a search warrant at his home. What they found was damning: blood evidence in his garage, DNA matching Sade on tools, and signs of an attempted cleanup. A large freezer had recently been removed. Neighbors told detectives they'd seen him dragging heavy bags outside that night. Adding to the horror, a confidential source claimed Anderson had told them a month earlier that he wanted to kill a woman and make her disappear. That source later came forward when the headlines hit. On April 12, 2024, formal charges were filed. The criminal complaint painted a picture of premeditation and sadistic violence. Still, Anderson pled not guilty. He refused to speak. His defense team cited lack of motive, but prosecutors didn't need one. The physical evidence was staggering. Despite all this, one thing remained deeply troubling. A significant portion of Sade's body, including her head, has never been recovered. On May 27, 2025, more than a year after the brutal murder of 19-year-old Sade Robinson, the courtroom in Milwaukee County was filled with anticipation and quiet tension. Family, reporters, court TV cameras, and the broader community watched as jury selection began for the man accused of dismembering her, 34-year-old Maxwell Anderson. Anderson entered the courtroom in a neatly pressed suit. His hands were uncuffed at the defense table. He sat silently beside his attorneys, betraying no emotion, no sign of regret, no hint of nervousness. Across the aisle, Sade's family wore buttons with her picture, their expressions unreadable, but their pain visible. Over the next few days, the court sifted through dozens of potential jurors. Some were dismissed for knowing too much from the media. Others admitted they couldn't stomach the details. Eventually, 12 were selected to decide Anderson's fate. 12 strangers now responsible for bringing justice to a girl who would never speak again. From day one, the prosecution came prepared. Their opening statement was blunt and chilling.
He tried to get rid of everything. He tried to cover up. And what does he do after he gets home? He powers up his phone and he sends a text. Morning, how's work going? Disgusting. Right after he's just burned her car. Killed her. Why did he do that? He's covering up. He's trying to cover his tracks. He's trying to make sure everything seems normal. Same reason he went to work that day. Couldn't let his routine go out. He needed to maintain appearances, despite the fact that in the middle of the night, he's out cutting up a human body and burning a car.
This was a first date that turned into a murder. Not of passion, but of planning. They introduced the evidence. Surveillance footage, digital data, forensic traces, witness testimony, and the locations of the scattered remains. It painted a picture not just of a killing, but of a calculated, methodical cover-up. Sade's final known moments were shown on screen. The jury watched her walk into Twisted Fisherman with Anderson. Later, they saw the pair driving to Duke's on Water. Finally, they observed the car pulling into Anderson's driveway. And then a gap, a void of silence, time unaccounted for, until her car was found on fire and her dismembered leg appeared at Warnemont Park. Testimony followed from forensic experts. They explained the DNA match between Sade's blood and samples found in Anderson's garage. One analyst testified that cleaning agents were found near a blood trail, suggesting an attempted cleanup. A fire investigator described how the burning of Sade's car was clearly intentional, a deliberate act meant to destroy evidence. The prosecution's most jarring piece came in the form of GPS data from Anderson's phone. Prosecutors showed how his movements on April 2nd aligned almost perfectly with where body parts were later found. Alleyways, parks, even a route south into Illinois. Then came the confidential informant, a man who knew Anderson personally. He told the court that Anderson had allegedly spoken in March of 2024 about wanting to make a woman disappear. The jury leaned in at that. No one wanted to believe it, that the killing was premeditated, but the words hung in the air like smoke. The defense tried to cast doubt. They claimed the case was circumstantial, that no one saw the killing happen, that Anderson had no clear motive. They questioned the informant's credibility, suggested the surveillance timeline wasn't airtight, and argued that the evidence linking Anderson to the disposal sites was not enough to prove he committed the murder.
It's not what Mr. Vance Krzan says. It's not what I say. It's really what all of you say once you go back in that jury room and carefully consider the evidence or lack of evidence. And it's important to evaluate each one of these counts separately. And the judge told you, as hard as that can be in cases like this, to try to check your emotions at the door. I know it's hard. I don't think any of us envy any of aspect of what our jobs are. We all have a job to do. The most important job is yours, and it's to check your emotion at the door, put aside passion, put aside prejudice, and look at the case from the evidence. That's all I ask you to do. And on each count, render a separate verdict, unanimously. You can make a request when you go back there of the judge to view videos again if that's something that you'd like to do, or look at DNA reports or look at photographs. You can make those requests, and I would encourage you to do so.
But the jury wasn't convinced. Each day, the weight of evidence grew heavier. Sade's mother, Sheena Scarborough, sat through every moment. When she took the stand, she didn't just speak as a mother. She spoke as a woman whose daughter had been hunted, butchered, and abandoned. He took more than her life, she told the jury. He took our future. The prosecution rested its case with a haunting reminder. Maxwell Anderson didn't just kill Sade Robinson. He tried to erase her. As the trial moved into closing arguments, the community held its breath. Whether it ended in conviction or not, the trial itself had already left an irreversible mark on Milwaukee. A reminder of the violence women, especially Black women, face, and how easily those stories can be buried unless someone fights to tell them. The verdict was yet to come, but the message was already clear. This was not just a murder trial, it was a reckoning. When the courtroom doors finally closed and the testimony faded, what remained was the grief. Not just of a mother who had lost her only daughter, but of an entire community haunted by a single question. Why? The trial may have given the public a glimpse into the horror Sade endured, but it could never explain the mind of the man who did it. Even as the prosecution stacked up damning evidence, even as the jury nodded along with expert after expert, Maxwell Anderson never gave an explanation, not to the court, not to Sade's family, not even to his lawyers. And for the Robinson family, silence has become a second sentence. Without a full confession, the motive behind murder remains speculative. Prosecutors argued it was premeditated. The confidential informant claimed Anderson had made threats weeks in advance. But the why, the deepest and most important question, still looms unanswered. Even more devastating is the fact that some of Sade's remains, including her head, have never been recovered. Despite pleas from her mother and search efforts from law enforcement, the final pieces of her body remain lost. "We can't even bury her whole," Sheena Scarborough said through tears in a televised interview. "We don't have that piece." In the weeks following the trial, Milwaukee saw a groundswell of action. Community groups rallied in Sade's name. Billboards and flyers popped up with her face and the words, "Justice for Sade." The tragic story sparked broader conversations about violence against Black and brown women, and how often their cases are overlooked or underinvestigated. Her mother turned her heartbreak into purpose. She launched the Shade's Voice Foundation, dedicated to raising awareness, pushing for policy reform, and supporting families of missing or murdered Black women and girls. Their first major event, a candlelight vigil on Sade's 20th birthday, drew hundreds of people from across the state. Sade's old college created a memorial scholarship in her name, a yearly award for young women pursuing criminal justice. It was a small but powerful tribute to what she could have been, and the internet responded too. Hashtags like #JusticeForSade and #SayHerName flooded platforms like Twitter and TikTok. Influencers, true crime creators, and activists began amplifying her story, ensuring it would never be forgotten, even as the news cycle moved on. But for Sade's loved ones, time hasn't made things easier. Every holiday, every birthday, every silent moment reminds them of the girl who was once so full of life and laughter. They visit her memorial, they speak at events, they search wooded trails for any trace of what was left behind. Meanwhile, Maxwell Anderson remains in jail, facing the possibility of life without parole. His sentencing is pending the final outcome of the trial.
He did it because he wanted to do it. All the stab wounds near her breast and on her torso, that was done out of a sick desire to do harm to her. That's the only reason that is done.
We, the jury, find the defendant, Maxwell Anderson, guilty of first-degree intentional homicide as charged in count 1 of the information. As to count 2, we, the jury, find the defendant, Maxwell Anderson, guilty of mutilating a corpse as charged in count 2 of the information. As to count 3, we, the jury, find the defendant, Maxwell Anderson, guilty of arson of property other than a building as charged in count 3 of the information. As to count 4, we, the jury, find the defendant, Maxwell Anderson, guilty of hiding a corpse as charged in count 4 of the information.
No sentence could match the crime. And as the Robinson family continues their fight for full justice, they do so with clarity. They will never let Sade be reduced to just another headline. She is not just a victim, she is a movement, and that movement is growing. From the heart of Milwaukee to the rest of the country, Sade Robinson's story is no longer just a tragedy, it is a catalyst, a reason for change, a call to action, and through that legacy, her voice will never be silenced again. Sade Robinson's story didn't end with her death. Her voice, her light, and her legacy continue to move people. In the wake of her murder, her family launched Shade's Voice Foundation, advocacy group fighting for missing women of color, demanding accountability, and pressuring law enforcement to act with urgency. They've hosted vigils, marches, and partnered with national groups to push for better resources and awareness. Her mother pleads publicly, not just for justice in court, but for the return of her daughter's missing remains. "We deserve to bury her whole," she said during a recent interview. "We deserve peace." The community of Milwaukee has not forgotten. Street murals, memorials, and scholarship funds now bear Sade's name. She is a symbol, not of tragedy, but of strength, justice, and change. And for true crime followers, Her case is more than a story. It's a reminder that evil doesn't always wear a mask. Sometimes it smiles, it flirts, it invites you to dinner, and never lets you leave. Maxwell Anderson's trial is still unfolding. The truth of what happened in that house and why may never fully be known. But one thing is certain: Sade deserved better. Her story forces us to ask hard questions. How do we protect our daughters? How do we hold monsters accountable? And how do we ensure no one slips through the cracks of justice? Sade Robinson was 19. She had dreams, she had time, and she had a future that someone decided to destroy. Let us remember her not as a victim, but as a fighter. Someone whose life, though short, is now changing others.